2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, 2.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's time for the inquiry to resume. Could somebody at the back please close the door? Thank you. Just a couple of very brief housekeeping points as we're in a new room. Toilet facilities, I think, are on the left down the corridor as you leave this room. And as with yesterday, there is a fire alarm. It's the real thing. There's no practice today, so just follow the signs on the corridor outside the room. I just would like next to introduce Brenda Taplin, who's joining us as the second programme officer today, and sitting next to Joanna Vincent, who most of you will already have met. The next thing I want to move on to is the question that arose at an early stage yesterday concerning publicity for the inquiry. There's been correspondence between with the Transport Infrastructure Planning Unit, which inspectors have been made aware of. Essentially, as I understand it, the applicant forwarded submissions which were the basis of those that were put at the inquiry yesterday, so that Tipu had the same information that was before Mr. Underwood and myself. Tipu have essentially responded by saying that the question is a matter for the discretion of the inspectors in this case. We've considered the situation very carefully in the light of what we've heard and what we've read. Our view is that given the steps that the applicant has now taken, the publicity that was already underway, and in particular the length of this inquiry, which extends for 8 weeks over a 10-week period, that the failure to comply with Rule 13(6)(b) in this case does not cause prejudice if the inquiry is to continue, and we're content therefore to proceed as originally intended. Can I just check if anybody wishes to comment at this point? Mr. Cambourne, I think you do.
Not to comment, but to just indicate the witnesses I have available, but I'll let anybody else comment who'd like to. But
yeah. We will proceed as intended.
Thank you, sir. I had intended to call Peter Freeman first, but I indicated yesterday, given the uncertainty, that we didn't feel able to ask him to come. I mean, he would have been able to give his evidence, as it turns out, but we didn't know that. So my first witness is going to be Chris Whitehouse. But what I'd like to do, sir, I don't want to cause any undue delay. Grateful that we're able to carry on. Mr. Whitehouse is here and ready to go, and I told Mr. Parker yesterday that this may be the case if we continued. But what I would like to do, if I may, is just to have a 10 or 15 minute break so I can find out when Mr. Freeman is now available. Now we know the ruling, because if he is available, say first thing tomorrow, I'd like to be able to call him first thing tomorrow, because it makes more sense for him to be the first witness. But having said that, Mr. Whitehouse is here, ready to go, and we can start with him if that is not acceptable. But I would just like to find out.
I just want to be clear, are you suggesting, Mr. Cameron, that if Mr. Freeman is available tomorrow, you'd like to wait until he has given evidence? Ideally, because it makes sense for him to go first as far as our case is concerned. Yes. But I'm also anxious for the inquiry to proceed. Yes. So if that's not acceptable, I'll just call Mr. Whitehouse today. I'm a little bit surprised because separately from the question about publicity, when we were perhaps unduly anxious about the weather this morning for the site visit, we did raise the question of an alternative, and I think you said quite clearly that there was no alternative for Mr. Freeman but to come this afternoon.
Well, that was the position at the time. I did also say that I would have to find out about Mr. Freeman and whether he was prepared to come on the off chance that he might be heard.
Yes.
I did raise that. But, sir, he can be called at any time which is convenient to the inquiry and which is available to him during the course of the next 8 weeks.
Right. Is there any possibility at all that he could be available this afternoon, or is Mr. Baker saying?
Not this afternoon, but what about tomorrow morning?
I very much doubt it. I'm checking, but I very much doubt it, but we'll see.
Okay. Well, if Mr. Baker very much doubts it, we'll just get on with Mr. Whitehouse.
Well, yes. We can't.
Yes.
We certainly can't delay that long.
No.
Before we proceed with witnesses, there is just one other thing that we wish to raise, and that just a reference to the initial site visits that were carried out this morning. We undertook that programme, and both Mr. Underwood and I found that extremely helpful in terms of the evidence which we're going to hear during the course of the inquiry. Just so that you're aware of what we have seen, there's a programme that was made available, and we've seen all the sites indicated in that programme with the exception of number 7, the waterworks site, although we did go past it on the A road. And in addition, the bus we were using, we made sure that went on a route between the end of the planned busway, the eastern end in Cambourne, and the centre of Cambourne. So we've got an idea of how that journey would finish. So I just wanted to let the inquiry know about that. I don't think Mr. Underwood and I have anything else to raise at this stage. Before we return to you, Mr. Cameron, are there any procedural points that any of the parties need to raise? Have you any, Mr. Cameron?
I think I'll let Mr. Parker go first.
Okay. Mr. Parker.
It's just a point about documents. I've raised it with the applicant. There are 2 additional documents that I would like to put into the inquiry in relation to Mr. Whitehouse's evidence. I haven't had a final response from the applicant as to whether or not they're happy for those documents to go in, but I just raised that at the earliest possible opportunity.
Yes, do you remember the point we made yesterday about additional documents?
I'm aware, and I'll explain.
There must be a reason.
Yeah, I can explain that, but I don't know whether the applicant's had an opportunity to consider them yet, because that will obviously be relevant too. But I can deal with that now if you want.
Well, it looks likely that Mr. Whitehouse is going to be the first witness, so we do need it dealing with.
Yeah. So
promptly.
So we're at the moment, we've seen the documents, we're grateful for them, but if we can just hear why they need to go in, and then we'll respond.
Yeah. So the first document is a document from June 2025. It is the most recent version of the quarterly transport update. Previous iterations of that document are already before the inquiry. We would have thought you, sirs, would find the most recent version of that document of assistance in any event. And it gives you the most up-to-date transport data available from the council. I would have thought may well be the applicant will want that document to go in as well. But that's the first document. The second document is an extract from a report which was produced by WSP Atkins, so the consultants who are dealing with matters before this inquiry. It relates to a transport model called the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Combined Authority Transport Model. And it is a report which deals with, and that is a new model which is replacing, among other things, the CSRM, which is a model that was used for the transport modelling for the scheme. And it contains comments about the data which was used to underpin the CSRM, which is pertinent to the questions that I want to put to Mr. Whitehouse. It's a publicly available document. It was a document which was produced, as I say, by WSP, who appeared before us. The extracts I want to rely on are relatively short. It won't take very much time. I'm afraid I'm not in a position to say that we couldn't have produced this document at an earlier stage. Yes. It has come to light in the context of my preparation for the cross-examination. So I think that's probably all I need to say at this stage.
Jeff, do you want to?
Just before we ask the applicant, you mentioned there was some, in terms of the quarterly transport update, could you just give me a core document reference where I can find the other ones that you mentioned that are already in?
Yes, it is CD7 something, and I will just... Yeah, so CD 725 is Q4 2024. But when you come to look at the document at CD 725 is just a headline page. If you don't permit me to put in the updated document, I would ask that you see some of the pages from the underlying data for that period, because I had seen this core document entry, downloaded the document myself rather than from the link, and I realised when you actually click on the applicant's link, it's just the headlines, not the actual data.
Okay, well, thank you for signposting me to that. Thank you.
We don't object, sir. But can I just add this caveat that we don't obviously know what questions are going to be asked in these documents, and if Mr. Whitehouse feels that they're better dealt with by a later witness, no doubt he will say.
In terms of the June document, which you said was the latest one, Mr. Parker, was that available at the time when evidence should have been submitted? I think you said the second document, the WSP report, was.
That was definitely available. I am not sure if it's clear when those documents... I would need to investigate that when the actual document appeared on the web page. I'm not sure. As far as we can tell in the short period, it's not clear exactly when it went onto the website. It's the data for June 2025, so I'm very surprised if it made it onto the website.
So
the time of the evidence, but
we can't be absolutely certain about that.
It may
yes.
be the council can confirm.
Yes. I think, given that the applicant has no objection, and I think you've made the point that the references you intend to make to them are relatively brief, and certainly the first one is most up to date. We will accept them, but I would please remind parties not to assume that that will necessarily be the case with other documents. Was there anything else, Mr. Parker, that you wanted to mention?
No, thank you, sir.
Was there anything, Mr. Cameron, procedurally?
No, sir. Ready to go with Mr. Whitehouse, but he might need a few minutes just to set up in position.
Well, let me just check if there's anything procedural from anybody else in the room. No, in that case, it is your witness, Mr. Cameron.
Thank you, sir. Well, can I invite Mr. Whitehouse to come up to the witness table and to just take a little bit of time to set up his documents in the normal way, just so that he can make sure everything's working and power cable could be helpful.
So we'll just go at you an extension lead, Chris.
Just while we're waiting for Mr Whitehouse to be ready. Are you absolutely certain, Mr Cameron, about Mr Freeman's availability for tomorrow?
When Mr Baker returns, here he is, he's coming back in. He's okay. The inspector's just asked if you could just check.
Nothing else. She's been on the phone to him, but nothing else.
Okay, let's just press on. That can be done in the background.
Yeah.
So if Mr Freeman were not available, Mr Cameron, would you be then moving on to Mr Lonergan?
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay, just let's, I know what the options are.
No, so we all need to know
Yeah.
to prepare. I can see that.
Yeah.
So the order would be as indicated. I mean, as and when Mr Freeman's available, I would like to be able to call him. But we're trying to find out when he is available. Otherwise, the order for this week is Mr Whitehouse, Mr Lonergan, Mr Baker.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I just flag up one point of timetable which has occurred to me, that the people that I would like to hear when Mr Lonergan's giving evidence aren't available on Friday. So if there are a way in which I think Mr Lonergan was originally scheduled to be heard tomorrow, I would be grateful if he could be heard tomorrow, so that I can have the right people here, if there was a way to facilitate that.
Well, I think mainly down to Mr Parker on how long he spends with Mr Whitehouse, but I've got just a warning. I think I will take longer with Mr Whitehouse in examination in chief than I will with Mr Lonergan, so don't take fright when we spend a bit longer in examination in chief with Mr Whitehouse. It's not going to be repeated throughout, but he's the first witness and I need to ask him about quite a large number of issues.
Okay. Thanks both. You may need to have some discussions outside the inquiry, Mr Parker, about that. We'll see how things go. Mr Whitehouse, are you more or less there?
Yes, thank you very much.
Right, so if I can introduce you to the inquiry, are you Chris Whitehouse?
Yes.
And your qualifications and experience are set out in your proof of evidence at page 3 at section 1.1. And you have a degree in geography, you have an MSc in transport planning and engineering, 25 years of experience in the transport sector, working on the development of schemes, and you say, and we're at 1.1.3, you're an expert in the application of His Majesty's Treasury Green Book guidance and the Department for Transport's Transport Business Case guidance, along with the Department for Transport's Transport Analysis guidance, and you've been involved in a number of schemes to which you refer. But the core of your expertise is in business case development and in particular the economic element of it. Is that right?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, I'm not going to ask you to read anything out, but I have got a series of questions for you, and they come under these headings, just so that you know, sir, where we're going.
Yes.
We're going to deal with the business case process, and then we're going to go to the process as applied in this case. We're not going to spend long on the outline business case itself, but we will look at the business case addendum. We're then going to look at the value for money framework of May 2025, and then we're going to consider some responses to points made by objectors. So that's the the outline. So start, please, Mr. Whitehouse, with what will seem every day to you, but may not be completely every day to all the rest of us. Just to set the context, can we go to core document 817, please, which is called Transport Business Case Guidance. And we'll just let everybody get that. And so if I jump ahead or Mr. Whitehouse jumps ahead, please let us know and we'll slow down. And if we're not going fast enough, you can tell us that as well. So just start, if we can, on the purpose of this guidance, page 5. Page 6, we note that it's been updated to reflect the recommendations of the 2020 Green Book Review and the 2022 Green Book. And then the business case model, page 6 and 7. What are the 5 elements of the business case which is developed for a transport scheme such as this?
So the 5 cases which address the 5 dimensions identified by the central government to address.
Excuse me, can you have a microphone on, please?
Right, thank you, sorry. So the business case guidance sets out the 5 case model that central government expects to be used for making the case for developing interventions. And the 5 cases provide a holistic picture of the scheme. There is the strategic case, which sets out the strategic context in which to consider the intervention. There's the economic dimension or case, which considers the value for money of the proposals. You have the financial case, which looks at the affordability of the proposals. And then the commercial case is looking at the viability of a delivery path for it. And the 5th and final case is the management case, setting out or giving confidence that there is a way to manage the process and to realise the scheme, deliver it efficiently.
And what's the purpose of all this? I think we probably get a bit of feedback if we have 2 mics on at once, which is going to be quite difficult for both of us. But so what's the purpose of this business case? Who develops it? Who's it submitted to? And what decisions does it inform?
The purpose of the business case is to demonstrate that a structured approach has been taken in line with the relevant guidance to present the information to the decision makers, the funders and those who grant approval, to determine their view on it as to provide approvals for it to proceed and or unlock funding for it to be implemented. It's developed by the promoter of the scheme.
Thank you. So that's the DFT overall business case guidance. Can we then just turn so that when we come to apply it, we know what we're talking about? So we've got at core document 825 a document called Transport Analysis Guidance, known in the jargon as TAG. And once you've got that, 825, can you just...
Can I put 817 to one side?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
And where are you going in 825?
So if we've just got 825 5 to hand. If we go to page 3, please. We see at the top, this guidance is for project promoters and sponsors who manage and oversee those projects as a whole. And then we can see there's various links to different tag units. And if we go to page 4, guidance for the appraisal practitioner, and we can see there are different units for different purposes. How are those used by somebody like you?
So this guidance, as the name suggests, is for the analytical element of the business case, which sits in the economic case. So this is best practice guidance to provide the approach to consider when looking to assess, to appraise monetised, quantified and non-quantified benefits and impacts of a scheme. And that then plays a role in contributing to the value for money assessment.
Thank you. We're now going to go on in the process to core document 832, please, which is the value for money framework. And we notice that this is when everybody's got it. So this is a May 2025 document. And if we look at your proof of evidence, we can see that it's referred to at 2.6, heading Value for Money Framework, May 2025. And you say in 2.6.1 that this framework sets out an indicative BCR metric which reflects a change from DFT's guidance on value for money at the time of the analyses presented in the economic cases of the outline business case and outline business case addendum. Now, just so that we get the nomenclature correct, can we just go in that document to page 17 and 4.3.3. If we look at 4.3.3, it says 3 lines down, these impacts are presented in 3 different BCR metrics. These are initial, adjusted and indicative. And each BCR metric builds on the last, reflecting a greater degree of uncertainty in the types of impacts included in each, including level 3 wider economic impacts, reference to a tag unit, which are included in the indicative metrics. So having...
Mr Whitehouse, there are an awful lot of acronyms in your proof. Obviously very useful for shorthand, but given the range of people in the room, when the first time we come to one, like in this case BCR, could you just make sure that everybody understands what it is?
Try to, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, perhaps you better tell everybody now, what does BCR stand for?
BCR stands for benefit to cost ratio.
Yes.
Anyway, so we got 3 different BCR, benefit to cost ratio metrics, initial, adjusted and indicative. And if you then go on to the next page, page 18, there's a table 4.1, and we there have types of impact and their use. Another acronym VFM, value for money assessment. And what does this table tell us about the initial adjusted and indicative metrics?
The table describes the categorization of those impacts in terms of which are from the, as it states in there, sort of which are more established and how they are used for the initial BCR to start with, and then the secondary benefits that come from the established monetised benefits are labelled as evolving, and these are included in the adjusted BCR metric. And then building upon them, we have the indicative monetised impacts, which are not transport specific benefits, and these are it says there's been more debate over them, but they are in guidance and accepted in terms of providing evidence for the case, and they are considered along with non-monetised impacts in order to come up with a sort of final value for money consideration.
So there, we've got in our mind initial, adjusted and indicative, and we know that at 2.6 of your evidence you're referring to a May 2025 document which we've just been looking at, and if we look at 2.6.4 in your proof, you say that at the time of the acronym police really need to get out on you, Mr. Whitehouse, the outline business case and the outline business case addendum, the guidance did not include producing an indicative benefit to cost ratio.
That's correct.
So will we, if we look at the outline business case or its addendum, find any reference to indicative BCRs?
You will not.
But you say that in 2.6.4 second sentence, instead switching value analysis was applied for informing the final assessment of the value for money category. And we're going to turn to this switching value analysis in a moment, but just for the outline, we're just dealing with process, not its application. What does switching value analysis mean?
The switching value analysis is used to demonstrate how much of these level 3 benefits, these indicative benefits, are required to move you up to a higher value for money category implied by the BCR. So if your adjusted BCR, for the sake of argument, was 1.3, you would see what percentage of your indicative benefits would you need to get you to 1.5. So it's intended to let you assess that even if the full indicative benefits were not to be realised, maybe only half of them or so on could still put you in a value for money category higher than where you are at the moment.
And just remind us of the value for money categories based on the benefit cost ratio.
So the key one is where benefits are equal to costs or just above, which is 1-to-1. That is regarded as low value for money. When you have a benefit cost ratio of 1.5 or above, that implies medium value for money. Above 2-to-1 implies high value for money. There are further value for money classifications at either end of that, but
and the analysis is based on a 5-case model, and the BCR, as you've explained, relates to the economic case.
yes.
So does the BCR give you a complete answer to whether the project is a good thing and deserves funding, or do you look at all 5 cases?
You look at all 5 cases, and I think if we could maybe just look at table 5.1 in this current document.
Sorry, Mr. Wise, where do you want to take us?
Sorry, table 5.1, which is on
Page.
page 24. So that just repeats the classification, but I think the important bit it talks about it's implied by it, so it doesn't the BCR does not equal the value for money category, so it implies the value for money category, but then there are these wider considerations addressed particularly in the strategic and economic cases that underpin the value for money case.
Thank you. Now we're going to turn from the process to its application in this case, and we've got a lot of written evidence. We're not going over it all now, but we're just going to note that there was an outline business case. It's in the CD 120 series and it's got all 5 cases there. But let's go on to audit, and we're going to go on to the business case addendum and look at that in more detail. So can we go to core document 827, please? You got that?
Yes, I have, thank you.
Good. And that's independent audit of key assumptions and constraints. What was the purpose of this document? Who was asked to carry it out, and what were they asked to do?
The review was undertaken by Amy, an independent review of the work that had been done to date. And then I think
in your proof of evidence.
my proof, I've set out the scope of it was to consider the assumptions used and the process to date to get to that point.
I think it's in section 2.4 of your evidence. I'm not going to ask you to read it all out, but you explain the purpose of the audit. And if we've got your proof of evidence at 2.4, we can see at 2.4.6 that you refer to the conclusions of the audit, which you tell us are at page 76. So let's just go to page 76. And what was the overall conclusion from these consultants?
The headline conclusion was that there was no reason why the Executive Board of the GCB should not proceed to the next stage in the development of the C2C scheme. And then they identified that the scheme was in alignment with national, regional and local policies, that the development of the business case followed Green Book and TAG methodology. The appraisal was carried out in a robust manner, that a number of alternative route options were put forward and were examined, and the business case, and identified that the business case must balance local concerns with the wider strategic goals.
Right, so following the trail, we've done the process, we've noted the outline business case, it's been an audit, said that Treasury Green Book and TAG methodology has been followed. We then go to the business case addendum, number of elements, but I'd like to go to the economic case, if we can, in the addendum, and for that we need 12102. And we can, well, we've got that to hand just so that we can all locate this in your proof. We go to your proof, page 16, 2.5.9. We have 2.5.8, we have reference to the economic case addendum.
Sorry, Mr. Cameron, can you just give me that last reference again, please?
Yes, that's in the proof,
Yes.
2.5.8, sir.
Thank you.
Now, what I'd like to do, Mr. Whitehouse, is, having identified the process, identified there's an initial BCR, there's an adjusted BCR, and then at that time you looked at switching values as opposed to looking
Yes.
at the indicative BCR, which didn't feature at that time, the guidance.
Yes.
So we're just going to look at the answers that you got at that stage. So shall we start? We'll take it in order, and we'll start with the initial BCR. So if you go in that document to page 16, please, and there we have it, a table 410, which is headed preferred option initial BCR. Have you got that?
I have, yes.
And what did the process of this detailed and complex analysis, what did that come up with as not the end answer, but on the stage at initial BCR?
So at the initial BCR stage, where the costs of the scheme were considered against the direct transport benefits from the proposals, so related to the impact on journey time savings and active travel, they demonstrated a benefit to cost ratio of 0.521, with the costs exceeding the benefits.
So under 1, we then go to the adjusted BCR, which we get on the next, go to page 18, there's a table 412. What does that tell us for adjust? First of all, remind us what the difference between the initial and the adjusted is, and then the answer that it comes up with.
So with the adjusted BCR, we are adding in the level 2 benefits, which are the wider economic impacts related to the direct journey time, direct transport benefits. So these are benefits that are estimated based upon the change in journey times, which allows improved productivity for businesses because their fleet is able to travel further in the shifts. It increases labour market catchment because employers have a wider pool of people to draw on. So these are the economic impacts associated with the transport changes, and the adjusted BCR was still at 0.521, so there was an increase in the benefits, but not a material level reflected the original level of initial transport benefits.
So and then the next stage in the process, we get, if you go to page 19, there's a heading land value uplift assessment. And what happens here once you take into account land value uplift?
So the land value uplift relates to the value of the benefits from being able to change the purpose of land, in this instance, into housing, and the benefits that derive from that. And with the inclusion of these indicative benefits, so rather here we were doing switching values, so this didn't lead to an indicative BCR, but it did lead to, just looking through for where in table 417 in the document presents the results of the dependent development analysis, which provides an estimate of £184.18 million of benefits in 2010 prices and values in line with DFT. And the effect of adding these benefits to the adjusted BCR is to then lead you to a position where the benefits outweigh the costs.
And if we just look at that in slightly more detail, you make assumptions as to land value uplift. So if we take 4429 in the document on page 21, we see the total additionality value of the development is calculated at 28% for Cambourne West and 69% for Bourne Airfield, equivalent to 3,850 homes. And if we look down at table 414, we can see that Cambourne West, the total is 2,350 and Bourne Airfield 3,500. But the additionality that you've put in is a lower number than adding those two together. Why is that?
Yes, the guidance from DFT takes a national perspective, so they are interested in changes at a national level, and recognising that their sort of house growth proposed for the local area, it's identified that if these sites did not come forward, there would be housing elsewhere. So the additionality is identifying what is over and above what would come forward without the scheme, and the guidance sets out the equation that one applies to identify those numbers.
And of course, if you put in values, you also have to put in costs, do you, to get the uplift? And if we look at table 415, that comes under a heading development cost components. What does that table tell the reader?
So that sets out the elements that are considered. As with the overall benefit to cost ratio, this element of the exercise considers the increase in benefits based in broad terms on the value generated by a number of dwellings and the land value, but that needs to be offset because clearly there are costs in terms of preparing the site, building the houses and associated fees as set out here.
And just while we got that in front of us, because it might assist us when we come on to when I ask you some questions about points made by those objecting to the order. But if you've got a gross development value of 110 million and somebody says, well, that's wrong and it should have been 100 million because house price is something else, do you just take off the 10 million or does that have an effect on costs as well?
It will have an effect on cost, as as you can see from table 415, there are a number of elements which are based on that 110 million or 100 million. So if that is reducing, the mathematics will work through and the cost will also reduce.
So taking a very simple point, you've got 20% developer profit on gross development value there. So if your gross development value goes down, that element of costs, what happens to that?
That will go down, and that element of it will go down by 20% as well.
And sales agent and legal fees.
A lot of the cost elements are a factor of the overall
Right.
land value uplift, land value, GDV.
So slightly off course then, but if we go back to table 417, we've got valuing the page 26, benefits of the dependent development. That goes in, you get your total developments of 184, but then we've got a table 418 on page 27, and that's another variation because you've added in additional 2,000 homes.
Yes, and as identified in the value for money note, there was the basis for this relates to housing proposals in the Cambourne area for actually 1950 homes in the I get my terminology right, I think it's the first proposals document, but the modelling did around in 2000, so it was seeing that if those houses come forward, what additional benefits.
So I'm going to lead you. The first proposals, that's the emerging local plan. Is that right?
Yes. So,
So if you add the effect of that in, it's approximately an extra 2,000 homes, and it makes a difference to the total benefits by the amount there shown, which is changes from 184 to 299 million.
yes.
Okay, so and then we go carrying on at page 27 of the document. There's a table 419, and that comes under the heading no displacement. And you explained to us how displacement was taken into account. What's the no displacement figure?
So this is representing a scenario in which, arguably with the demand for housing in the Greater Cambridge area, the market for housing, is that the housing that would go forward here would not displace housing elsewhere, or vice versa. There is sufficient demand for basically as much housing as can be developed. So under that scenario, you then get a higher level of benefit.
So you've done a no displacement figure 419 without the additional 2,000 homes, and then 420 there's a no displacement with the additional 2,000.
Yes. Showing potential upsides from our sort of what we say more conservative starting point.
And so then what are the tables that we then get at table 421 and 422? 422 headed switching value impact on the value for money category.
So as described earlier, at the time of this work there wasn't the guidance about an indicative BCR, so the guidance advised that to consider the contribution that land value uplift dependent development made to the value for money case, it was to add it to the benefits, and as I said earlier, see what percentage you would need to move up to a level. So in this, in table 4.2, the analysis is showing if you took from the right to left, if you took 50% of the forecast benefits, if you took 75%, or if you took 100% of it, what value for money category would be implied by that. So it's demonstrating that, in terms of taking the 75% column, it's demonstrating that if 25% of the forecast benefits were not to be realised once the housing is in place or the scheme is delivered, you're still going to have, still be in the area of a medium or high value for money position, depending on those sensitivity scenarios.
Right, so now that was the outline business case. That's when we were looking at switching values because this indicative BCR guidance hadn't come into force. So can we then take up core document 932, which is a July 2025 document, which was produced after the value for money framework May 2025. You got that? It's a technical note from your firm.
Yes, I have.
And is that your document that you produced?
Yes, it is.
And so if we have this go to beginning of this, we got table 1, which is on page 2. So we're going to go through the same thing again: initial, adjusted, and indicative. And what answers do we get? Well, first of all, are these on the figures from the addendum outline business case or from some other figures?
Correct. These are from the addendum. This note does not undertake any new analysis. It is a presentation of the previously presented results, just in line with the latest version of this value for money guidance.
And if we just go through the tables, just go quickly, if you can, through initial, adjusted and indicative, because by this stage indicative had come into play.
Yes, so as I say, this is just a reproduction of what was in the economic case addendum. So we have an initial BCR of 0.5 to 1, which remains unchanged under the adjusted BCR position. And then in terms of the indicative BCR, when we include the indicative benefits, it leads to a benefit to cost ratio of 1.8 to 1.
Where's that, Mr. Johnson?
This is table 4 in that note.
So we're originally on table 1, weren't we?
Yes, we gone to, sorry, table 4 on page 4, sir.
And you're adding in table 4?
So table 4 is when we add in this dependent development land value uplift element to it, which previously the guidance asked you to do switching values rather than using it cumulatively.
We're dealing with the same matter of land values.
Yes, yes, we are.
Can I just be clear about that? Because I think the first time you mentioned it, you referred to land values, and I think you also said and what flows from that. So is it just land values that you're adding in, or is it something else as well?
It is just, this is just land value uplift from the housing.
Nothing else. So it's
There's
just
nothing.
it's just residential land value.
This is, yes, for the analysis, for the monetised analysis, we've only
And
looked
you've
at
been
residential.
consistent on just residential now.
Yes, we have.
Thank you.
And if we go to paragraph 13 of the document, it says the indicative BCR metric of 1.8 to 1 implies median value for money. And that's just remembering the different switching values. Is the 1.8 to 1, is that based on the existing local plan without the emerging proposals which add on another 2,000 odd?
Yes, this is, that's correct. This is not one of the sensitivity analyses. This is that core assumption of just Bourne Airfield and Cambourne West.
So and is this with displacement or without displacement?
This is with displacement.
So if you had either, well, we'll do it cumulatively, if you did it without displacement and then with the emerging proposals, does it change the value for money category?
I think it might.
We had them in the switching values, didn't we?
We have them in the, oh yes, and also we have the sensitivity test in table 9 with the additional 2,000 homes, which demonstrates a BCR of 2.7 to 1. So that would take
So
you to
2.7, did you say?
a benefit to cost ratio of 2.7
Yeah.
to 1, which does move you, therefore you've moved into the high value for money category.
Page 9, sir.
Thank you.
So we have that, and you said that this is based on land value uplift, housing only.
Correct.
And so does this take account of any additional value from employment land?
Not for the purposes of this monetised BCR analysis.
So does that mean that this is an optimistic assessment or a conservative assessment? How would you describe it?
I would describe it as a prudent assessment.
Thank you. Now, we're going to turn now in the next stage of this examination in chief to look at what some of the other parties say, and I'm going to ask for your comments on that. So, and we're going to, I hope not jump around a bit, but I just want to ask you about one thing now in Mr. Lee's rebuttal. I'm then going to go on to other benefits, and then we're going to go to the objectors. So if you've got Mr. Lee's rebuttal to hand, please, and I can give everybody some long document reference if it helps, but if it doesn't help, I won't.
Well, I just happen to have it anyways.
Yes. Good.
I've got it.
Good. So if you go to 1.2.2 on page 3, and just read in isolation, I'm sure this should be read in wider context, but what Mr. Lee says is there's a strong body of evidence that shows that quantified transport benefits capture other benefits such as land value uplift. It is for this reason that the standard tag approach does not include land value uplift as a distinct component of the monetised impacts. Now, when you're approaching indicative BCR, is it right that land value uplift is not included, as Mr. Lee appears to say?
No, that's incorrect.
We'll come back to Mr. Lee in a moment in more detail, but just deal with that. And you say it's incorrect, but and can we just have a look at core document 832, which he refers to, and if we go back to that, if you still got it, and to page 19,
Sorry, which document is that?
It's the value for money framework.
One. Okay, yep.
Yeah. And if we go to page 19 and look at indicative monetized impacts in table 4.2, does that include dependent development or does it not?
It includes dependent development.
Thank you. Just on benefits, if we go back to your proof, and we're going to 3.2.8, page 22 of your proof, because we're looking at rather than pure numbers, looking at actual benefits.
Sorry, you say 3.2.20?
3.2.8, page 22 of your proof.
Thank you, yes.
And you say the new scheme, bus services, will provide a reduction in bus journey times and increased bus patronage as set out in the economic addendum. And then you list the transport benefits. And some have questioned the passenger forecasts, and you say there over 10,000 passengers a day are forecast to use the scheme, of which nearly 9,000 will be making new bus trips. How is that? What's the basis for those assumptions in broad terms?
In broad terms, those that demand forecast comes from the transport modelling that was undertaken, and in that a forecast year of 2041 was used, which provides a comparison of without the scheme and with the scheme, but taking on board the significant housing, population and employment growth up to that period, and also taking account of the introduction of the park and ride on the route, and that leads to the forecast of the 10,000 passengers.
So taking the park and ride, how many spaces in the park and ride?
I believe it's planned to be 2,000 spaces.
Thank you. Well, we can see your list of, and then you've got economic benefits, and we can see at 3.2.13 you've got the scheme unlocking the delivery, and we looked at these figures before, the 3.850, but you've got 850 new homes at Cambourne West and 3,000 new homes at Bourne Airfield. So taking Bourne Airfield, and again, I don't think it's a matter of dispute, it's a matter of fact, so I'm going to lead, but we know the outline planning permission is for 3,500 homes at Bourne Airfield, but there's a condition which allows 500 before this scheme or some equivalent is in place.
Yes.
So can you explain the 3,000 that you've got there rather than the 3,500?
So the 3,000 has been identified, as you say, on the basis of the planning condition coming forwards. The original work for the 2020 economic case undertook analysis and reviewed transport conditions on the network, determining that there are current and forecast traffic challenges, and so the introduction of new development would introduce more traffic and lead to what's termed sort of as not meeting a reasonable level of service. So they identified the 3,500 homes as being dependent on the scheme. However, for the later modelling, because the planning condition had been put in place. The assumptions in the model were revised to reflect that the planning condition had gone in.
Thank you. And then so bearing those numbers in mind, when you do the economic analysis, you've got 3,000 at Bourne and 850 at Cambourne West, although we know that the planning permission at Cambourne West is for 2350.
Yes.
And then when we get social benefits at 3217, the full numbers are in without any reduction. Why is that?
Because this is related to the social benefits that will arise from the affordable housing proportion of the new developments. So it's through the scheme that you unlock the total quantum of the proposals, and therefore I think saying 40% or 30% at Cambourne West and 40% of Bourne Airfield of those totals will be affordable housing, and therefore bringing the associated social benefits.
But shouldn't it be 40% of the lower number that Mr Cameron asked you about before?
Well, in terms of what the scheme directly is, what the scheme is correctly doing, what's saying in the proof is that we reach that total through the intervention, through the scheme.
Yes, but a certain number could come forward anyway, couldn't they?
They could, yes. And we haven't, this is not a benefit that is monetised or captured in the BCR. What we're just saying here is that there will be affordable housing as part of that development.
But so for the BCR, you've taken the figures at 3213, which are just the dependent development.
Yes.
And the point at the social benefits are, once the whole scheme goes ahead, there will be 30% and 40% respectively of affordable
social housing will be from those two
overall
sites once the scheme is. Yeah.
But if one was to restrict it to that dependent on the scheme on the same basis of the same assumptions, it would be 30% and 40% of the lower figure.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so the figures that are used for the BCR are which of those figures? I think you've
They are
answered
just
this.
the dependent ones, as you say, the 3,000 for Bourne Airfield and the 850 for Cambourne West.
Thank you. Now, I'm going to turn on to the some of the representations made and evidence of CPPF and also made by others. I don't know, sir, if you're looking for an afternoon break, whether that's a good time to have it or whether you'd like me to press on.
Well, I am looking for an afternoon break at a convenient point. If the next session's going to go anything over 10 minutes or so.
No, it's going to go for more than 10 minutes.
Yes. We'll take it now then.
Thank you, sir.
We'll take an adjournment. I'll make it 3:15, so resume please at 5:25.
Thank you, sir. So we're going on to, I'm going to ask you some questions about points which are taken by those who object to the scheme. And I'm going to take the first few points under some headings, and then we're going to go to some specific points taken on behalf of CPPF.
Okay.
So the first main heading is East-West Rail. So, and I'm going to ask you to take up your proof of evidence, please, and go to 4.3.6. And you're there responding to a point taken on behalf of the Cambridge Busways Action Group. I hope they don't mind if I just, for convenience, call them CBAG. And you're saying that their point is, they say, impact of East-West Rail not considered, and you explain the approach taken, and you said, given the absence of a scheme specification, timescales for delivery and committed funding, East-West Rail was not considered near certain or more than likely, and in line with business case guidance was not included in the core scenario. There's quite a few little jargon terms there. And you make reference to a document which is core document 821, which we got, which has the snappy title of Tag Unit M4, Forecasting and Uncertainty. And the place that you tell us to go is page 51. And at page 51, there's a table A2, which has got classification of future inputs, if everybody's got that.
I'm not quite there, Mr. Yeah.
51 in the PDF.
Table A2.
Table A2, so yes. So we've got, so you in that sentence that I read out, the second sentence after the italics in 4.3.6, EWR was not considered near certain or more than likely. And if we turn to it, table A2, it slightly demystifies those words, because we can see probability of the input, and there are a number of categories, near certain and more than likely. And we can see that near certain is when you've got approved development proposals or projects under construction. EWR, time of the outline business case, or indeed now, does it have, is it an approved development proposal?
It is not.
In this area?
No.
And then there's the more than likely, and that is submission of planning or consent application imminent, development application within the consent process. And has it reached that stage?
It is not.
And so when we look at core scenario assumption in the last column, if it's near certain, it should go in. If it's more than likely, it could form. But if it's not in either of those categories, should it go in the core scenario or should it not?
It should not.
And so the approach that you've taken, is it consistent or inconsistent with the specific tag guidance on the certainty issue?
It is consistent with tag.
Thank you. And then if we go back to your proof at 4.3.7, you say, you refer to EWR, you say that Cambridge to Cambourne and EWR are anticipated to complement each other as Cambridge to Cambourne will serve locations along the corridor and connect to the city from the west, whilst EWR will link to Cambridge South, the biomedical campus and Cambridge Station, because it goes in to the railway line to the south and then up to the centre. So, and then you say sensitivity testing was undertaken for upside and downside impacts on the level of scheme benefits that could result from higher or lower demand growth. And those tests confirm the complementarity of the two schemes. And where do we find those sensitivity tests?
They are in the July technical note you referred to earlier.
So I think that's core document 932. And in there, where do we need to go? We might need to go to table 5 on page 5.
Yes, that sets out the results of the sensitivity tests.
And what does that tell us? I mean, I look at that and can't see anything to do with East-West Rail. What's the connection?
It shows you that if one assumes that there is lower growth for whatever reason that is, lower growth of demand for the busway scheme, it doesn't have a material effect on the indicative BCR. Our low growth scenario is showing a benefit cost ratio of 1.7 to 1, so we're still in the category of medium value for money.
And we had yesterday in the opening statement for CPPF, paragraph 17 of what's now core document 2904, it said that refers to the scheme, it says CPPF alternative could be delivered more quickly, avoid the need for a significant time-consuming and costly incursion into the greenbelt for a scheme, which I think is referring to the applicant scheme, which is likely to become obsolete, or at least its benefits significantly curtailed in the medium term if and when EWR is constructed or some other mass transit scheme is advanced. So just concentrating on the EWR, is the busway scheme going to be obsolete if EWR comes along?
I don't believe so. As outlined in my proof, they are serving different markets with the East-West Rail accessing to the south of Cambridge, while the busway obviously serves intermediate locations along the corridor. And also, when one comes to consider the demand they may attract, it's not just going to be the headline journey time between 2 points. There will also be considerations in terms of accessibility, if you're living near a busway stop, in terms of fares, potential access to parking charges, capacity of the services, etc. So there are a number of considerations that would inform people's decisions as to which mode to take, and so I think they serve different purposes.
And if we go to your rebuttal, you address this point at 3.4.3 in response to the bus action group.
Sorry, can you give me the paragraph again, please?
3.4.3 in Mr. Whitehouse's rebuttal. And you say, as stated in the strategic case addendum, reference given, and noted in the independent audit, C2C and EWR are anticipated to complement each other, as C2C will serve locations along the corridor and connect the city from the west, whilst EWR will link to Cambridge South, the biomedical campus, and Cambridge Station. And you then, at 3.4.4, I think made the point you just made, that it's journey times between 2 points, and it depends where you're coming from and where you're going to.
Yes, yes.
So if you're going to Cambridge West, employment, will EWR be any good for you if you're travelling from Cambourne?
It will be less, yes, less attractive and less helpful to you
Than
the busway.
Thank you. Just want to check one other thing. I think we can probably last point in Mr. Lee's rebuttal at 1:15. He, having seen your point about core scenarios and table we just looked at, no doubt, he says it's never been our contention that EWR should have been included in the core scenario. Our contention has been the applicant should have modelled a scenario that includes EWR to sensitivity test the business case. Do you accept that?
I accept the element that it should not be in the core scenario.
Yes.
In relation to it should have been a sensitivity, I believe our sensitivities of the low growth and the other sensitivities we have undertaken have demonstrated a range of assumptions and the resulting range of results.
Thank you. Now, next broad topic raised by objectors is post the COVID lockdown and changes to travel patterns, that general point. And if we go to your proof, and we go to 4.3.8, still dealing with the busway action group, scope of modelling, dealing with uncertainty post-COVID, and you refer to back to 932, which we've been looking at, and the sensitivity test. So how did you deal with the effect of COVID-19, or more actually the lockdowns imposed as a result of COVID-19 on transport demand modelling forecasts? How did you deal with that? And if we got 932 to hand and go to page 5, we can see that you've got a whole section headed effect on COVID-19 on transport demand modelling forecasts. So what was the approach taken?
The approach taken reflected the guidance from DFT set out in TAG, as identified in paragraph 18, relating to DFT's uncertainty toolkit. And this was based on using count data from that time, and as it says in paragraph 20, using a post-model adjustment in line with the guidance to to assess the effect of the change in travel levels at this point in time.
And we can see at para 23 that if you apply the sensitivity, it's still medium value for money at 1.7 to 1.
Yes.
Now, while we've got this document to hand, on page same page 6, paragraph 20, you refer to the tag unit. Can I just ask you this? Why didn't you construct a new model based on post-COVID travel patterns? It's been suggested by some that you should have done.
That is one of the options in the guidance while we took the post-model adjustment approach. A view was taken on the proportionality of the approach as set out in the uncertainty toolkit. It advises that proportionate appraisal approaches should be applied, and a key element of that is looking at the anticipated materiality of the change. So undertaking this sensitivity test demonstrates that there's not a material change to the results, and therefore that supports the proportionality approach that is just embedded throughout sort of Green Book and TAG as the approach to carrying out appraisals.
Thank you. We're now going to move on to some specific CPPF points. You've responded to many of these in your rebuttal, so I'm not going to go through each of the ones you've responded to in your rebuttal. There are some I'd like to just pull out, and some which are dealt with in rebuttals put in by CPPF witnesses, which you now need a chance to respond to. I'm not going to deal with everyone. Can we just start with one which is one of Mr. Littlewood's points, and it goes back and to
which part of Mr. Littlewood's evidence are you in?
I am turning to paragraph 7.27 in his proof, sir.
Right.
Sorry, what's the core document reference to that?
2610.
Good.
Thank you. It's okay.
Thank you. Sorry. My excuse is that we put the references on some of our proofs, and I should have written it on Mr. Littlewood's, but I haven't. So I'm.
But you'll have to give me the paragraph number again. Sorry, Mr. Cameron.
Sorry, 727.
720.
Page 20, sir. Mr. Littlewood.
Yeah.
I hope. Page 20 on mine. Have you got it,
I have.
Mr. Whitehouse? Good. So,
Yeah.
one of those things that everybody spends ages getting there, and you wonder whether you get, when you get there, whether it was all worth it. But let's see how interesting it is. I'll just take this as an example. So one of the points that are made by Mr. Littlewood is that if you take off the maintenance track, you lose significant economic benefits which have been attributed to active travel.
Yes.
And you respond to this in your rebuttal at 3.1.3. And you say, as a mathematical exercise, this is correct. However, the effect of this on the present value of benefits would not change the assessment of medium value for money. And you make another point, which goes back to what when we were looking at process, it should also be noted that should the maintenance track not be necessary, not only would there be a reduction in benefits, but there would also be a reduction in costs. So generally when you're doing this type of exercise, and it's when you remove something, is it right just to remove the benefits, or should you also remove the costs?
You should remove the costs if they are related. If the benefits are generated by a cost item, one wants to maintain internal consistency, so you sort of treat both sides of the equation.
Yeah. And that's an example, and I think the other example we've looked at earlier is if you reduce reduce gross development value for housing because you say the house price assumptions is wrong, you've got to take some costs off as well.
Yes, treating both sides equally.
So I just took that as an example. Now, if we go back to Mr. Lee, I think you've responded to most of these points in your detailed rebuttal. But can we just take up your rebuttal, and this is the travel demand breakdown, and in your rebuttal it's page 4, 3.2.5, and you're dealing with daily figures.
Yes.
And you make some detailed points, but can we just go to 3.2.8? So you say Edward Lee's estimate of 3.8 million annual passenger journeys is also incorrect. It appears that an annualisation factor of 365 or so has been applied, and you say not the right thing to do. You take a different annualisation factor because, no doubt, weekdays are not the same as weekends.
Indeed, the modelling has represented a specific period, the AM peak, the evening peak and the inter-peak. So those, as you'll understand, will have certain characteristics. So it would be incorrect to assume that those characteristics of the morning peak and the evening peak, for example, are the same for every single day of the year. Hence, we used a annualisation factor of 253, which represents weekdays within the year.
And is that unusual, standard, or what?
No, it's standard approach, and as referenced here, TAG references that the annualisation factors should reflect the modelled periods.
Yeah. And for somebody who's familiar with business case analysis, standard practice or on annualisation or not? I mean,
yes, very standard.
Now, can we turn, well, we've got your rebuttal, to 3.2.17, and here this is the conclusion of your response to Mr. Lee. And if you've got all the sections in Mr. Lee's. Mr. Lee likes those really long paragraph numbers, 4, 4, 8, 5, and so on. And you say, apply erroneous assumptions, are internally inconsistent, and do not align with TAG. So, without going into every detail, what's the essence of the criticism that you make of Mr. Lee?
The critique is that he's misdrawn assumptions in terms of he made an assumption that the level of additionality should be greater than we had assumed, and therefore there would be fewer dependent development dwellings. We've talked about the internal inconsistency of just marking down the benefit sides without reflecting on the interactions it has with the costs and other elements of the benefit cost analysis, and just in terms of following the TAG guidance, in terms of the guidance states which inflation factors should be used, and the processes for valuing land value uplift.
If we just take up Mr. Lee's rebuttal, we got a slightly different point, but this is his kind of an overview point, page 5, para 112. And you've dealt with passenger journeys, you've explained how you've come to your conclusion, you've explained errors in Mr. Lee's analysis, annualisation and so on. In his rebuttal at 112, he says, whatever the error that resulted in such an implausibly high bus patronage forecast, it must surely invalidate the entire economic appraisal. Now, we know from your evidence that the bulk of the benefits in the economic appraisal come from land value uplift.
Yes.
And that's what contributes to the overall indicative BCR and the median value.
Yes.
So even if he was right and the bus patronage figures were wrong, would it move the analysis to any great extent if it's based mainly on land value uplift?
No, I believe the conclusions will still be the same in terms of being medium value for money.
Thank you. And if we have, just for the, no, that's all I need to ask on that point. While we've got the Mr. Lee's rebuttal to hand, at 114 he says that the economic appraisal is fundamentally flawed and that you have not yourself inquired into the rationale for the methodology set out in the ECA or the accuracy of the working behind it. What's your response to that?
I say that's incorrect. I am fully aware of the rationale that's been applied and its consistency with guidance, and hence being the appropriate approach.
And if you go to Mr. Lee's rebuttal again at 3.4, which comes under the heading corrections and clarifications, and he's referring back to (4.4.8.11) in his proof, and he's done this is where he's changed some gross development value figures, and he's then done a calculation, and he's comes to the conclusion that if you don't get as much for the houses, so the gross development value goes down, you end up with a value which is less than the total economic cost, and that's why he gets his minuses, I think, unless I misunderstood that. Is that credible at all?
I don't believe so. I think this will suffer from the same issue that not aware that he's taken on board the implications on the cost side from the reduction in the GDV.
And if we go back to your rebuttal, 3.2.24, this is where you're dealing with the negative BCR point that I've just asked you about. Does that statement, your response, still stand when you say that the conclusion is flawed and implausible on the basis of only reducing the benefit value without addressing the related reduction in costs? I think it's what you've just said, but...
So what paragraph?
3.2.24 in your rebuttal. Page 7.
Yes, yes. Indeed.
Thank you. And to that, Mr. Lee, if we can put his evidence to one side. Just going to ask you a few questions about Mr. Johnston's evidence. Take up Mr. Johnston.
Core document, please.
Sorry, Mr. Henderson will tell you.
For the main proof is 2610
Yeah.
W21.
Write that on here. 2610 W21. And this is a point which you've covered in part already, but you just need your answer on this. If you go to 210 on page 4, Mr. Johnson is advancing the case that the F series of the CSRM strategic model, so this is the transport model, F series, is not fit for purpose today, and a new normal state has settled, and this is post-COVID lockdown point again in part, I think.
So apologies, sorry, which paragraph?
Yeah. 210, 29 and 210, page 4 in Mr. Johnston.
Oh, yes, 29, yes. Thank you.
And he said, and at 213 he said, I would have expected GCP to have commissioned a fully updated post-COVID version and used it to check the F-series finding rather than using the DFT uncertainty toolkit. You've already touched this in part, but do you accept Mr. Johnston's suggestion that the F-series modelling was not fit for purpose?
No, I believe the F-series modelling was the best available modelling at the time, and it was took on board the tag guidance at the time of its development, and as we've demonstrated with the COVID sensitivity, the new or the levels of demand at that point did not materially change the outcomes. So I believe it supports the proportionate approach in terms of using the existing tools that are around, and then recognising there is uncertainty, using sensitivity tests, and considering the position in the round.
And another point on Mr. Johnston, 3.06. Mr. Johnston, 3.05, refers to funding being allocated to EWR in the spending review. And then 3.06, he says, as such, and for the purposes of C2C, EWR must today be regarded as a materially significant and fully committed scheme, which is diametrically opposed to the position taken by GCP. So we looked at the guidance on uncertainty. We've got a scheme where I think you've already given evidence that an application has not even yet been made for consent.
Consent, yes.
So is it a fully committed scheme if you haven't yet applied for consent?
No, it's not.
Thank you. Commendable brief answer. And this is the last question I'm going to ask you, unless somebody digs me in the ribs and say I've forgotten something. But can we go to your conclusions at 5.1.1, page 36 on your proof? You wrote this before you'd seen all the evidence from the objectors. You've considered the evidence from the objectors. You've put in rebuttal evidence. Do those conclusions stand or not stand?
For me, those conclusions stand.
Thank you, Mr. Whitehouse. Those are all the questions I've got for you, but there will be others who have other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Cameron. Mr. Parker, you know.
Thank you, Sir. I just want to flag up that even according to my time estimate, and I fear I may run over,
Yes.
we are probably going to run over into tomorrow. I'm very happy and I prefer to press on, but I just want to make that absolutely clear before we start, because I don't know whether Mr. Cameron has a view about that. But
Well, yes, I anticipated that would be the case,
Yeah.
but
fine.
given the current arrangements in terms of contact between witnesses and parties, that once, as Mr. Whitehouse has already started, that wouldn't make any difference in that respect.
Yes.
And keen to press on, because I've just heard that Mr. Freeman may be available tomorrow morning after Mr. Whitehouse has finished. So
Yes, that would be helpful.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Whitehouse. I want to start, please, by asking you about the transport user benefits that you have referred to, firstly, and then we'll come on to the indicative benefits after that. But let's start with the transport user benefits. For reference, you set those out at paragraph 3.2.8 of your proof, which is page 22. And I just want to pause to make sure we're clear about exactly how those claimed benefits have been calculated. Now, as I understand it, what the applicant has done is produced an assumed level of bus service, which, for reference, I think is Appendix F to the addendum outline business case. We don't need to go there, but but that assumed level of bus service has then been the subject of transport modelling. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
So the assessment of the user transport benefits of the scheme depends on a comparison between the bus service that is facilitated by the do minimum infrastructure scenario, so that's existing infrastructure plus other committed schemes, and the service that would be facilitated by the busway.
Yes.
Yeah. So taking each of those benefits in your bullet points, so journey times, what you've done is compared the time that it would take a bus to travel into Cambridge from Cambourne, or the edge of Cambridge from Cambourne, using the proposed busway against the time that it would take if the busway didn't exist. Is that how you've calculated the journey time savings, essentially?
Yes, the model has been specified with, say, run times in the with and without scenarios.
Yeah, and the most obvious and significant constraint on the bus service that is facilitated by the do minimum scenario is congestion on the road system.
Yes.
So it's right, isn't it, that the journey time savings don't derive, as it were, from the infrastructure themselves. They derive from the fact that a bus can travel more quickly along it than along the existing roads. Yeah, I mean,
I'm not sure, because the bus, there is not congestion on the busway.
no, exactly. That's the point. So it's not the busway itself which is delivering the benefit. It's that the busway doesn't have any other cars on it, any other traffic on it, and so the bus can travel more quickly along the busway than the road that has the cars on it. That's essentially the point, isn't it?
Yes, travelling in uncongested conditions is faster than travelling in congested conditions.
Yeah, and so those journey time savings have been derived using the model that we've already referred to, the Cambridge sub-regional model, the CSMR. That's right, isn't it?
Yes.
Thank you. Then the next bullet point, patronage. So 10,000 passengers a day using the scheme, 9,000 making new bus trips. Again, that figure is an output from the CSRM.
Yes.
That bus patronage figure. Again, increased mode share is an output for from the CSRM.
Output, yes.
That's a modelling output from exactly the same model. Now, you refer in this bullet point, the fourth bullet point, where you refer to increasing mode share, encouragement of active travel use, resulting in decongestion of the road network in the corridor. We can go to the references if we need to, but in the transport assessment, which is CD 12501, it makes clear that the decongestion benefits of the scheme are minimal. Do you want to go to that reference? Let's go to the reference. So can you take up CD 125.01? And it's paragraph 7, 37 and 38.
Just give me a moment, Mr. Parker.
Sorry, you're saying 12507, was that? Did you?
Yes, let me, have I got that reference right?
Transport assessment.
12501.
And within that, Mr. Parker?
737, which is I've got that wrong. Hold on a minute. 7.3.7. It may be 7.3.7. Yes, sorry. Yeah, that's right. 7.3.7, which is under the heading without making connections.
Yeah, I've just found that.
And again, in the jargon, without making connections is a transport intervention, or making connections is a transport intervention The scenario that you're describing is where that transport intervention isn't made because the decision's been made not to proceed with making connections. That's right, isn't it?
That's correct, yes. Yeah.
So the scenario is describing the world in which you expect to live, and we see at 7.3.7, 7.3.8, a review of the volume over capacity statistics at junctions in the study area, and it says overall BCs are very similar between do minimum and do something. Yeah?
Yep.
I mean, are you claiming that there is a material decongestion benefit as a result of the introduction of the scheme?
What we are claiming is that in terms of, as we discussed previously, the benefit cost ratio,
Yeah.
we have a monetised highway benefit for that highway decongestion. It is not, as we've been saying, it is not the central element of the case for the busway.
Okay. Let's cut through. Insofar as you derive that monetised benefit, again, is that decongestion benefit an output from the CSRM?
Yes.
Then the final bullet point, reliability. Again, briefly, as I understand it, is reliability an output from the CSRM, or is it calculated in some other way?
This is a non-quantified assessment. This is, as you said earlier, congested conditions are more likely to impact reliability than uncongested conditions that get on the busway.
Sure. So it's claimed, as it were, as a benefit in your list of bullet points in the proof, but it doesn't lead to any monetised benefit that you've identified or assessed in your assessments.
It hasn't been monetised. No, it's an upside and it's taken into account in the broader value for money consideration.
Fine. So it's right, isn't it, that any assessment of the transport user benefits of the proposed scheme depends fundamentally on this understanding of the comparison between the do minimum and the proposed service. That's right, isn't it? That's the key comparison.
Yes, it's the with and without comparison,
and,
yes.
And then, so the assessment of that relative performance of the do minimum versus the scheme is fundamental to the understanding of the benefits. The way in which you assess it is fundamental to understanding that benefit.
Of those benefits that are derived from it.
Yeah. Now, sorry, my computer is just frozen, helpfully. Sorry. Downsides of technology. Sorry, Mr. Whitehouse. Let me just try reopening my document. Sorry, sir, my computer's not playing ball.
Mr. Parker, do you want to move on to?
I'm trying. I'm just
Oh,
trying.
right.
I'm trying to get my my document with my
With your notes on?
notes on it to work, and it's refusing to. I'm sorry, sir. Just bear with me. I'm sorry, sir. My computer is not working. Can I try? Can you bear with me for 2 minutes while I try restarting my computer? I'm sorry. It's just not loading my document.
Should we take a 5-minute break while you try to sort it out?
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
very sorry to everyone.
Okay.
Let me just So in terms then, let's turn to the calculation of the journey time savings and what they are. I mean, I said in opening, let me see if I can just deal with this relatively briefly, that the obvious journey time saving, which has been claimed for the scheme and which is referred to throughout the document, is the journey time saving for someone who was boarding the bus at Cambourne or to the west of Cambridge in the morning and travelling into Cambridge. So inbound bus journey times in the AM peak. Yeah, that's the key metric, the key journey time saving, which is identified to be the benefit. That's right, isn't it?
No, that is a key saving that was presented in the proof and so on, but the modelling looked at the AM peak, the interpeak and the PM, and so will reflect the conditions, and the value, which I'm just looking at, the economic case amounts to nearly 16 million pounds of journey time benefits.
Yeah.
Its contribution to the overall case.
Yeah, but it's right, isn't it, that the key benefit is the AM peak journeys into, we can look at the data, but by far the most significant journey time saving is for journeys in the AM peak into Cambridge. That's right, isn't it?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. Now, I'm not going to go through, there's obviously data in the original outline business case, but let's go to the addendum. Mm-hmm. So that's CD 12102, that's the economic case. And if you turn to paragraph 4.1.3, we can see there, sorry.
Yes, 12102.
12102, para 4.1.3.
Beg your pardon, sorry, paragraph 4.
4.1.3.
Thank you.
Which is page 10 of the PDF or 7 of the internal numbering. And we see reference there to the CSRM F-series modelling has been used for the inputs to the economic appraisal, yeah?
Yes.
And if we go through, I think you've confirmed this, perhaps we don't need to go to all the references. For the journey time savings, the patronage, the mode share, they're all based on the CSRM. That's right, isn't it?
Yes.
I think patronage, for some reason, if you look at paragraph 4.1.6, the patronage forecasts were based on an earlier version of the CSRM. We see that from the final sentence, the E-series.
Okay, yes.
Is that right?
I presume so. For documentation, I'd have to double check with the modellers.
Okay. Well, I mean, I was going to ask, I mean, would that make any material difference to the outcome if passenger forecasts were based on the E-series by comparison with the F-series? Is that not a question you can answer?
Well, I go back to, I think, in terms of the contribution that this benefit makes to the overall case is very small.
Yeah, I've heard your case on that, but I'm interested in passenger numbers. I mean, is it your understanding that would make a difference to the passenger numbers or not? So the difference between the E-series and the
It's not my
F-series?
understanding they make a material difference, no.
Okay. Thank you. And then the final sort of document, you've also produced a transport assessment, which we've already looked at briefly. If we can just go back to that transport assessment, which is CD 125. (125.01). Now, at paragraph 8.4 of that transport assessment, 8.4, sorry. Bus journey times. 8.4.1, the bus strategy is included as part of the outline business case, and you say 8.4.2, the following bus journey times have been extracted from the outline business case. They've been reproduced to illustrate the difference in bus journey times between the 2041 do minimum and 2041 do something scenarios, and then we have at the following tables various bus journey time savings. Yeah, you see that in the transport assessment.
See that, yes.
It says that those journey time savings are taken from the outline business case, but if you go back to the outline business case wasn't based on a 2041 assessment date, and it wasn't based on a journey time from Cambourne to the eastern end of the busway. I can give you the reference for that if you want to. But I'm just not clear where these bus journey time savings have come from. I wonder whether that reference in the transport assessment is right. Again, I don't know if that's a question that you can answer.
I can't answer it at this point, no.
Okay. Well, if there is an answer, then you can obviously come back. I don't want to take up the inspector's time with us trawling through all of the documents, but I'm happy to leave that one with you. Yeah.
Check, because we've got to follow this out, what the precise question is. Is it where do the bus journey times come from?
Yes. Where do those bus journey times derive from? It's said to be the outline business case, but when you go, I'll give you the reference, when you go to the source, what I understand to be the source of the analysis in the outline business case, which is an annex to part 3 of the options appraisal report. It's something of a paper chase, this whole exercise, which is CD 120.09. You find bus journey times which are measured to a different end date and between different geographical places.
Take that away if we may and see whether we come up.
Now, appended to the transport assessment are the validation report, which is Appendix G to the transport assessment, and the forecasting report, which are Appendix F. If you can take up the Appendix F, which is CD 125.07, just tell me when you get there.
Opening. Yes. And sorry, within that document?
Then it's paragraph, well, just to introduce the document, this is the forecasting report in respect of the CSRM F series. We can see that from PDF page 2. So that's the context for the reference that I'm about to take you to. But if you go through to the introduction, and in particular paragraph 1.1, which is on PDF page 11, internal page 10. At the very top of the page, we see a sentence beginning, the F series, 2 lines down.
So that probably is on page 10 of the PDF.
Internal 10 or 11 PDF. Sorry, it's a pet peeve when PDF numbers don't match the page numbers, and this is one of those documents. But it's PDF 11 at the top. Second line, yeah.
The F series also improved.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you see what the report is saying about the use of this model. So the F series also improves the level of detail. Fine, not relevant to present purposes, but this is very relevant, and added a 2019 present year validation to extend the life of the model until such time as a whole new base year can be created once the disruption to travel behaviour and patterns caused by the COVID-19 pandemic has settled to a new normal state. Yeah?
See that, yes.
Now, on any view, the use of that model in 2024 is to use it beyond the life as described in the forecasting report, isn't it?
I don't agree that it's that categorical. The whole guidance about use of models, again, comes back to proportionality. There's the issue that one didn't actually know when the new normal, it's only with hindsight, one knew when the new normal had been arrived at. And it was a consideration of what was the proportionate approach to take in terms of underpinning the analysis.
Yeah, I understand your case that you had to make a decision as to what was proportionate, and don't worry, I'm going to come on and ask you questions about that, but I'm just talking about what the forecasting report itself is saying about its useful life, yeah?
Okay.
So if you read what it says, there can be no question that if you are using this model in 2024, you are using it beyond the date which is suggested forward in the forecasting report, because the forecasting report says its life is extended until such time as a whole new base year can be created once the disruption to travel and patterns caused by the COVID-19 pandemic has settled to a new normal state, yeah?
Yes, I read that, but I don't think that states that the model became out of date prior to 2024.
Okay, so why is that? Because you are saying that we are not yet at a point in time where it has been possible to create a new base year post-COVID?
No, I'm saying at the point in time that decisions were taken as to the appropriate tools to use, one had to consider if you're in the new normal, and then you had to consider the time it takes to baseline the model, and as we said, consider the influence that these transport impacts have, as we've covered earlier, following the tag in terms of the COVID sensitivity. It provided a number of options to look at, and using one of those tag consistent approaches, it showed that the results did not materially change.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I've already said I'm not asking you about that stage of the process. There comes a point in time where you look at what you have to do and what you have to decide, and you've talked about proportionality, and I am going to ask you about all of that. I'm not asking you about that for the moment. I'm asking you about the life of the model as this report expresses it to be. And what it says is that a new 2019 year has been created to extend the life of the model until a new base year can be created in a post-COVID world, essentially. Now,
yes.
Are you saying that when the addendum outline business case was produced, the transport assessment was produced, we weren't at a point in time at which a new base year could have been created in a post-COVID world?
Well, I think we were at a point in time that it could be considered, but to produce a post-COVID baseline requires work. I mean, there is.
Yeah, I know. That's a whole different point.
happening.
We're going to come to that. I'm just looking at what the model says about how long its life lasts, and the report is telling you that this model, its life is only extended until such time as a new base year can be created in a post-COVID world. Yeah. That's what it's telling. That's what that sentence is saying to you. Do you agree? That's what that sentence is saying to you.
I think it's. Well, I agree that it's saying that yes, a model update should be undertaken, and for the full business case, there will be the latest model used at that point.
Yeah, that's a wholly different point, which it doesn't really deal with my question. Let me put the question differently. Are you saying that reliance on the CSRM F series, yeah, is its use within the life that is envisaged for it in this sentence? When you used it in 2024 for the addendum outline business case and the transport assessment?
I'm trying to think how to answer that. I'm not. Yeah, I'm struggling to add to what I've said before in terms of the. It's acknowledged that the model was dated, and so the approach was taken to bring it up. But in terms of producing a new base year.
The question of whether to produce a new base year is a different question. Yeah, we're going to come on to that. Don't worry about that.
I thought what you were asking about this.
You've accepted that the model was dated. It's dated because it tells you that its life only lasts until a new post-COVID new normal has settled. That's what it's telling you, right?
We're saying it's until it can be created. It's not saying until that
Yeah.
new normal happens. It says until a new normal can be, until
Yeah.
a model that captures that new normal can be created.
No, it doesn't say until a new model is adopted. It says until a
Mr.
new
Pompark,
base year.
you've tried several times on this.
Yeah, I'll move on.
I think so.
You have the point. Can you take up one of the new documents? So it's CD 2908 in the core
So can you give me the
document.
title of that? 'Cause
Yeah.
sorry,
it's-
as in today's documents.
Yeah. I don't know whether were you in the room? So there were two additional documents which I asked the inspectors to accept in, and Mr. Cameron indicated he didn't have an objection to them. So they're documents that unless someone has flagged them up to you, you will not have seen before. I don't want to be unfair to you.
I'm
if you
aware,
haven't
no, I've
seen-
been told there's a document related to CapCam.
Yeah. And it may be, I don't know who the author of this document is. It may be that it's a document that you're already familiar with in any event, because it was produced by WSP and Atkins. So it's CD 2908.
But if Mr. Whitehouse isn't familiar, it may be a question that's better for tomorrow.
Yes, or I think when we go to the references, that it won't be if I can ask my questions, and if Mr. Whitehouse still feels that it's unfair because he hasn't considered the content of the report, then I will obviously back down. But and ask the questions tomorrow. But I suspect that insofar as he can see these references, he'll be happy to deal with them. Are you happy for me to just proceed
On that
on
basis, yes.
If you're,
Okay, I've got the document, yeah.
if you feel in any way prejudiced by these questions, Mr. Whitehouse, you will just say. So this is an extract from a report which was produced by WSP and Atkins on behalf of the combined authority. It's essentially a report which deals with what is to be the successor to the CSRM. Are you at all familiar with the CapCam? I ask because it's a WSP report. Is this something that you're familiar with?
Well, I mentioned there are 70,000 people in WSP.
Sure.
I'm not aware of every project.
No, I'm not suggesting that you should be. I'm just asking whether you are.
I am aware that a process is being gone through at the moment to develop a replacement of CSRM.
But you're not in any way involved.
I'm not involved in that at all, no.
Fine. So if you go through to page 7 of the PDF, paragraph 3.1.2, we see reference there to the Cambridge sub-regional model, and it's actually, for reference, quite a useful description of what the CSRM does, or I found it quite useful. And then we can see, so it's talking about the CSRM, and if you then scroll down to page 10 of the PDF, paragraph 3.1.10, we can see what can existing, we see a heading, what can existing models provide, and in the first paragraph we see there, models described above provide a large collection of information which could be utilised when developing the new model. However, much of the data underlying the models is now quite dated, and hence the appropriateness of this data in terms of coverage and age will need to be considered. In particular, demand data from traffic surveys is pre-COVID, and hence its usefulness will be limited. So you've seen that reference. I'm just going to point another couple of references out and then ask you a question about it. And then if you go to 3.1.11, there's a table 3.1, and then underneath the table we see the main shortcomings identified with the existing models are demand data underpinning models are now quite dated. For example, 2011 census, and we know the CSRM is based on the 2011 census, don't we?
Yes.
And require updating to remain valid. Yeah, you see that reference? Second bullet point under the table.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the final bullet point, changes in traveller behaviour due to emerging technology and post-COVID. Yeah, that's the final bullet point.
See that, yes.
So, whether you agree with them or not, your colleagues in WSP and others at Atkins have written a report which makes clear that the demand data underpinning the CSRM, so the 2011 census, requires updating in order for that data to remain valid, and that the CSRM has the shortcoming of it's based on pre-COVID data, yeah?
Yep.
And those are fair criticisms of, or when I
They're
say
observations,
criticisms,
yes,
they're
every model
yeah.
is of its time, yes.
And so that they are shortcomings which affect the use of the CSRM in 2024, aren't they?
They have implications for its use, yes.
Yeah. Fine. And then at section 3.2 we've got a heading data, and then there's a list of all sorts of different data which can be used.
Sorry, Mr. Parker, I missed the reference.
3.2, there's a section headed data which is
Got
page
it, yeah.
12.
Thank you.
And then we've got various headings underneath which provide sources of data and again at 3.2.3, same point, we see reference to 2021 census being unreliable because it was right in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. And then we see reference in the final sentence, data from 2011 is available, now very dated, so of limited use, meaning existing data on commuting patterns across the combined area is limited and will need to be addressed, yeah? So again, there's another reference about the underlying source data for the models.
Yes. Yeah, I'll just point out though, it's not saying the current data is wrong, it just said it is timely as part of the update to revisit it and see what has changed.
Well, no, that's not quite right. If you go back to the bullet point on underneath table 3.1.1, it's saying that the demand data underpinning the models are now quite dated and require updating to remain valid. So what this report is telling you is that in order for the data underpinning the model to be valid, it needs to be updated.
Yes, it does, but it's not saying that in updating it, it will actually change the numbers. That's not what's being stated.
Well, you don't know that until you review the model and review the
Yes,
inputs.
no, I appreciate that, but
So, you can't say either way whether the model is still valid until you've reviewed the inputs and the data that feed into it, can you?
yes, you need to look at the data.
Yeah. It must follow from the fact that the data requires updating that the model is not valid either. Otherwise, how would you know?
No, I don't think that quite follows. You can say the model is based on old data, but the
Yeah.
exercise needs to be undertaken to confirm that the new data is materially different from the old data to
Yeah.
draw a conclusion that you get different results.
Yeah, okay, fine. Now, just in terms of this new post-COVID normal, if you scroll forward in the report to page 21 of the PDF, 4.4, we see the heading model years.
I do, yes.
Yeah, and this is a report from October 2022. The authors of the report were deciding what should be the base year for the new model. Yeah, that's the purpose of this section, and it says here the model will be prepared with a base year of 2023, which means that all the inputs will be developed based on this year. And it says the decision to use 2023 is based on the possibility of collecting data representative of the post-COVID period. So the view was taken in 2022 by the authors of this report that it would be possible in 2023 to collate data which was representative of the post-COVID period. Yeah?
Yeah, it says it's possible.
Yeah. And do you disagree with that judgment?
Well, I'm not disagreeing with the judgment, I'm probably disagreeing with your interpretation of the sentence, where it's saying that it may be possible in 2023, but presumably, I don't know I'm not involved in, so I don't know in hindsight what actually has been done.
Okay, well, let me ask your view. Was it now in 2024 possible in 2023 to collect data which was representative of the post-COVID period? What's your judgment on that?
I'm not sure, to be honest, because in terms of the COVID sensitivity was 2023. I think it probably was, but I haven't, with that data
Well,
in front of me.
it's quite an important point. We've made this point repeatedly. When you say probably, are you able to give a definitive view? Was it possible in 2023 to collect data to represent appropriately post-COVID traffic conditions?
I believe it probably was, yeah, based on
Okay.
the evidence here.
I won't keep going over it. I'll take probably was. Can you take up now, please, CD 821? Actually, just before I go there, it's 5 to 5. I don't know what time you want to carry on. I'm probably launching into a new section which will take me quite significantly past 5 o'clock. So I just check before I do that what time you want to carry on until.
Well, we were looking for a convenient point to close round about 5 o'clock.
Okay, I would suggest rather than launching into this new section that we pause there then.
Right. I think there was an indication earlier that at least some parties were happy to start at 9:30 tomorrow morning. Can I just check whether that's
that is convenient for everybody.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yes,
Fine on your side as well, Mr. Parker? Yes.
No, that's okay.
Does it cause anybody who wants to come any difficulties? No. In that case, I think what we'll do is draw proceedings to a close now and resume at 9:30 in the morning. There's just one's on a completely different, well, partly related to the evidence we've heard this afternoon. One matter that we'd like to raise is it'd be useful, and perhaps looking at your side, Mr. Cameron, on this, if you could perhaps give some thought to an overall glossary of Mr. Whitehouse's evidence probably is a pointer in this direction with the acronyms, but not confined to that evidence across the board.
Just the job for WSP. They like
doing
using that kind of thing.
Right. I don't think there's a particular urgency about it, but it would be helpful for us. Right, Mr. Cameron, do you want to raise anything else?
No, thank you, sir.
Mr. Parker, do you?
Just so everybody knows, our plan would be to call Mr. Freeman after Mr. Whitehouse has finished tomorrow morning.
So we know he's available.
He's available tomorrow morning. He's got limited availability. Not a temptation for Mr. Parker to go on inordinately long to block him out, but
well, you can similarly direct that concern to Mr. Whitehouse, who has to
he's-
answer the question.
yeah, thank you. So far, no complaints on either side.
Anything that anybody else wishes to raise before we adjourn? Good. Right, the inquiry is now adjourned. We'll resume at 9:30 in this room tomorrow morning. Thank you.